then NGO perspectives are also very important in this issues brief on innovation, and the knowledge dimension from scientific and technological community, which comprises research, education, and innovation, is also very important. And Robert Pollard from the Information Habitat has contributed some important aspects. If you want to talk a little bit about this open source aspects of innovation for sustainable development, you could have the floor.
Hi, thanks. Didn't know that I was going to be called on. Usually find something to say. Yeah, Information Habitat was created in the lead up to Rio, and really is based on the vision that the key shift in development path that came out of, that really needed to come out, and in many ways did independently, was the transition to an essentially carbon-free digital platform that has very different properties in terms of participation, in terms of access to information, in terms of scarcity. That information has zero mass, it has zero physical size, and so it's not constrained by the laws of conservation of mass and energy, and is a free good. So there's, I see it too as looking at recognizing this information universe as another realm of the natural world, which until very recently only scholars and sages really had access to. So the opportunities and implications of that are tremendous, and I think I'm not as good at writing documents as Mira, so or promoting them. But I think this is one of the critical issues that's still missing in front of us here. This is the fundamental shift, and as it turned out, the first web page was uploaded a week before the third prep run for Rio. So now there's more than 1 trillion, and I don't think anything has grown that rapidly in the last 20 years. And yet it's really, and in many ways it's not just in the Rio process, but also across the board. So when the UN had its delivering as one report a few years ago, the internet was barely mentioned, although it's the natural vehicle for that. Anyhow, I'm happy to talk some more, but I think the issue is sort of how how this transforms our relationships with each other, particularly in terms of participation, but also in terms of accountability for the ability to really have the capacity to put together, for example, identify external costs in a meaningful way. So.
Yes, I fully agree, and it's really this information and communication technologies that are at our hand now that really make the difference with regard to the first Earth Summit in Rio 1992. And even at the Earth Summit in 1992, there has been a lot of mention of innovation, and it's really when preparing for this issues brief on innovation, when I looked at the document, at the Agenda 21, it was surprising how often innovation was referred to, and in how really sophisticated terms it was being made, so that if all the provisions of Agenda 21 would have been implemented, it would be really already the innovation system in place that we are now calling for again. But the idea is now really that the Rio+20 Earth Summit has the potentials to bring about substantial change and innovation. And the main point of our issues brief is this UN Civil Society Partnership Formula 15-15-15, and you can see here the graph which somehow demonstrates the main idea. It is that the UN system after World War II has been built on member states as the main pillars, and at that time it was okay. member state had resources, and the world was not so complex as it is today. But now, 60, 70 years later, the world is much more complex, and with these many interactions which are non-governmental but are border spanning, are global, with this whole opportunities that we have with internet for communication and interaction at very low costs. Everybody is empowered to get involved in global affairs. And also nowadays there are more financial resources and also intellectual resources residing with global citizens and in civil society or in domains where the government cannot directly influence. And so there's a need to direct these resources in an innovative way into the UN system. And global citizens and their resources for addressing global challenges, they are manifold. It's, of course, it's also about money, it's the financial resources, and if we look, for instance, at the Forbes list, there are about 1,200 billionaires around the world, and there's a lot of wealth accumulated in the hands of civil society, of private individuals, which are not are not at hand for addressing global challenges, but with cultural shift and with shift in values and more global civic engagement, global social responsibility of individuals, we are convinced that also financial resources can be channeled towards the UN system and global sustainable development efforts. And of course, a very important resource is knowledge, academic knowledge, but also knowledge with regard to social innovations and really knowledge that can be produced by very normal individual people who see a certain issue with regard to low carbon lifestyle and this kind of things. And when duplicated millions or hundreds of million times, really make a big change in our way of globally addressing sustainable development and climate change and other global issues. And there are emotional resources, it's hard power, political will, courage, and new ways of communications beyond the borders, which can enrich the UN system. And here it's really this Rio+20 Global Youth Music Contest that we think that really has the potentials to make a change for the UN system and can really provide already here for Rio+20 the hard power to build momentum for more committed action in Rio. But this initiative will develop further, and in the long run it's really some kind of hard power generator for the UN system and for global civic engagement. And volunteering is a very important issue because there are very many people around the world which with time, with compassion, with the will to contribute, but we have to establish channels and also documentation systems that acknowledge these contributions and bring them into coherence. And we are also in contact with the United Nations Volunteers Program is doing a great job in this direction, and they are going to present tomorrow Volunteer Action Counts. Is a very big initiative in the run-up to Rio+20, and we will link our efforts. So we will try to document or to connect our documentation systems with their information systems so that there will be really established global documentation system of sustainable development efforts of different types of stakeholders. And here you see this green arrow into the UN system with the 15-15-15 number. It's the UN civil society resource mobilization partnership formula, which says that at Rio+20 the global civil society should on the one hand commit to mobilize 15 billion euros and 15 million volunteers by the year 2015 for UN-led sustainable development efforts, and on the other hand request new forms of participation in global sustainable development governance. And this is somehow the conceptual framework for massive civic engagement and volunteering and philanthropy efforts towards the supporting the UN system. And the Rio+20 issues cluster on innovation had a chance to submit the linking points between this initiative and the Rio+20 zero draft of the outcome document in an issues cluster submission. And happily the major group NGO forwarded these comments into the official process as standpoints of the major group NGOs. And at the in the annex of the issues brief, you can see these points where it is really the comments show how the outcome document should look like, that such a 15-15-15 UN civil society partnership could work. For instance, in the first paragraph in this preamble, it should be that it's not only we, the heads of state and government, having met in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil from 20 to 22nd of June 2012, resolved to work together for a prosperous, secure and sustainable future, but in partnership with global citizens from all around the world. So this is already this paradigm shift that would be needed in the minds of the representatives of government in Rio, that they see every global citizen as partner in these efforts, and that it is reflected also in the outcome document.